Morgan is the queen of Fey Britain. She's cruel, tyrannical, cold, and pretty menacing. But there's one thing that's completely out of pocket about her. She really hates caterpillars. She straight up says it in one of her room dialogues. That's her dislike. And honestly, I think that's hilarious. This woman has countless enemies, and from all her interactions in the story, she constantly gives cold responses to others. So when she was asked about something she dislikes, I was expecting her to say Merlin or Artoria. But it turns out it's something closely related to us. The funny part is, this dislike actually shows up in the story too. Back during the Caterpillar Wars, Morgan, the all-powerful queen, didn't exactly handle things the way you'd expect. You'd think she'd stand her ground and walk away victorious, right? Well, not really. What actually happened was she ran straight back into her castle while screaming, fired her noble phantasm once, and basically said, "I can't do this." Meanwhile, Barghest had to step up and deal with the entire calamity. That's also the event that got Barghest named the Guardian of Fey Britain and bestowed with the title of Fairy Knight Gawain. And you see, that's one of the funniest things Morgan has ever done. I know her fear of caterpillars is pretty extreme, basically a phobia, but the fact that she just ran and locked herself away, even though she could have totally beaten them, is just so funny. Now, I'm not bringing up Morgan's caterpillar phobia just to highlight the comedic side of this tyrannical queen. I want to talk about it because I feel like there might be a hidden depth to it, something deeper going on, and nobody really knows for sure. And in my opinion, it has a connection with his adopted daughter, Baoban Sith. If you've played the Avalon LaFey chapter, you already know who Sith is. But if not, well, let me tell you a bit about her. She's a cruel woman with a reputation as one of the most hated Fae. And honestly, that title extends to us players too. God, I really hated her at first, at least before her backstory was revealed. But the truth is, Sith used to be a kind-hearted Fae who just wanted to make people happy. The problem is that her story always ended in tragedy. She always died, and every time, it was brutal. She always lost her 4 limbs, either from exhaustion that left her body useless or literally being ripped apart by other Fae. That was her cycle. Die, get torn apart, repeat, until she basically ran out of continues. Morgan eventually saved her and adopted her, recognizing her kindness and how similar her circumstances were to her own. That's basically their story. So with all that, I think, maybe Morgan's phobia of caterpillars isn't really about caterpillars themselves. Maybe it's trauma. Maybe seeing something wriggling around without arms or legs reminds her of her daughter, Sith, and all the cruel, horrible things she's seen happen to her. Because deep down, Morgan truly wanted Sith to be happy. So when she sees a limbless, writhing creature, maybe it pulls her straight back to those memories. Of course, this isn't 100% confirmed. It could also just be that, people being afraid of bugs or caterpillars is totally normal. I mean, I'm terrified of cockroaches, so I can relate. But if this really is what's going on in her head every time she sees a caterpillar, then I can honestly feel her sadness and how deeply she cares for her daughter. And that's what we're going to talk about today. People are rarely just what they seem at first glance. Admit it, even though we always say don't judge a book by its cover, in reality we do judge based on first impressions and appearances. That's why we can get completely shocked when we discover a hidden depth to someone that we never expected. I mean, let's look at Attack on Titan for a bit. Someone physically weak like Armin. Who would have guessed that behind all of that, there's a ruthless commander and a brilliant strategist? Nobody saw that coming. That's the interesting thing about hidden depth. When you look deeper, you start to see something more. Maybe it's something that makes them more relatable to us, or something that feels so different that it almost makes them seem alien in our eyes. Or maybe it's something that just makes sense for them to keep hidden from the public. So, let's dive in. Now it's about Vlad. If you ever see Vlad III in his castle, what's the first thing that comes to mind? The fact that he's Dracula. Yeah, that checks out. Or maybe how menacing his glare is. Totally understandable. But what if I told you Vlad actually has a surprisingly wholesome side? The dude is super fond of Elizabeth and treats her like a proper uncle with his niece. He even personally sewed her outfit for the first Halloween event because she asked him to. That's some next-level dedication. It's honestly such an adorable side of him that you'd never expect at first glance. Well, this is interesting because his counterpart, Vlad Extra, actually hates Liz, but this one, even as a berserker, can actually care about her. Another example is Saber Artoria. If you've seen the anime, you probably just think of her as the food vacuum, always eating Shiro's cooking. Meanwhile, Shiro gets all the credit for being the chef. But surprisingly, Artoria is actually implied to be really good at making sweets. Her Valentine's craft essence shows that she made a super intricate chocolate crown with crazy detailed carvings and everything. You'd never guess she had confectionery skills, but there you have it. That is such a beautiful crown made out of chocolate. Look at all those carvings and details. Then again, with Shiro cooking every day, she probably never had a reason to make desserts herself. She just gets to enjoy the free food. Honestly, if I got chocolate that fancy, I wouldn't even eat it. I'd just keep it as a collectible. On the flip side, Arthur is really into cooking. Fate Prototype already hinted at it, and his Valentine CE confirms that he's actually a skilled cook. Like, look at this. This craft essence looks so good, you wouldn't think twice about eating it. Looking at all the Artorias and Arthur reminds me of Castor and Pollux, the inseparable sibling duo. See, Castor, the older brother, is always acting like a jerk in front of others. He's constantly pissed off, throwing insults left and right. If you've played through Olympus, you know exactly what I mean. And yeah, I get why a lot of people find his constant rage annoying. But here's the thing, Castor isn't always like that. He usually acts all human-hating and aggressive when Pollux is around. But if you ever catch him alone, he's surprisingly calm and even understanding. I think this was shown in his interlude, or maybe a special chapter. I kind of forgot. But there was a moment where they got separated, and Castor suddenly dropped the attitude and acted way softer. And despite all his "I hate humans" talk, Castor actually enjoys celebrating stuff like Valentine's Day and Halloween. He and Pollux go all out preparing chocolates and candy for everyone. When it comes to giving gifts, they don't hold back at all. They go way further than necessary. Not gonna lie, it's kind of adorable. Now, this whole tough on the outside, softer on the inside thing reminds me a lot of Mordred. At first glance, she's just this aggressive, headstrong knight who charges straight into battle, relying purely on brute force. Even in her Bond 5 line, she admits that she's not much of a knight. But despite all that, she does have her own sense of chivalry. She says she's not a proper knight, but she still swears loyalty to Fuji anyway. And even when she rebelled against Artoria and took the throne while she was away, she made sure to attack in a way that minimized civilian casualties, because deep down, she does care about Britain. We see this again in Apocrypha, where she actively avoids involving civilians in her fights. And also, Mordred is actually one of the few competent administrators in the Knights of the Round Table. That's why she was left in charge while Artoria was away. In the first Grail front, she even drops a surprisingly sharp analysis of Chaldea's logistical problems, completely catching the strategists off guard. As Hector points out, it makes sense considering she led a rebellion, but Mordred still isn't thrilled about people seeing her as just a brainless brute. Next, Billy the Kid. Yes, this one is no exception. Okay, maybe this isn't exactly a hidden depth, but who cares? This one's just epic. In part 1, Billy comes off as a chill, friendly guy, nothing like the ruthless gunslinger from his legend. But come part 2, dude straight up tries to execute K-Doc because no one else will finish the job. That's a way colder side of him than we're used to seeing. Honestly, the first time I read that scene, I never expected Billy to be the one landing a devastating blow on K-Doc and Anastasia. And if that wasn't wild enough, his materials mention a story where he tricked a guy who was after him into showing him his gun without revealing his own identity. Then, after inspecting it, he handed the gun back after secretly removing the bullets. So when the duel started, Billy had all the advantage. That's crazy. Looking at his usual appearance, you'd never expect something like this from him. Now on to Emiya. No, not regular Emiya. We're talking Emiya Alter. We all know that OG Emiya has a soft side. The guy is literally called mommy by half the fandom, or at the very least, he has the ultimate responsible parent energy. But what about his Alter version? Unlike regular Emiya, this Emiya is basically at his lowest point. And let's be real, he's terrifying. His looks, his attitude, even his noble phantasm, everything about him screams menace. But Emiya Alter actually has an adorable hidden side. He keeps a diary to record his experiences at Chaldea so he doesn't forget them. And when you give him chocolate on Valentine's Day, he's genuinely touched since his nature makes it hard for him to remember things from the day before. You see, having a diary shows that he truly treasures his time with Fujimaru and everyone in Chaldea. It's sweet, but also kind of sad. Even if he acts cold and distant on the outside, deep down, he's just the caring mom type, only broken beyond saving. That one was kind of sad, but you know what? For this guy, I want to keep it fun. Let's talk about his original self, the Archer we all know and love. Well, this isn't some deep dive into his psyche or anything heavy, but I gotta tell you this little hidden depth about Emiya. Turns out, he's actually skilled at figure skating. And honestly, I'm not that surprised. Emiya feels like the type of guy who can do almost anything. This was mentioned by Bunyan in her Valentine's scene. She gives out huge food portions, and Emiya helped her make one. When he had to oil up this giant pan, he literally strapped bacon to special shoes and started skating all over it. Bunyan even said he pulled off a quintuple half-axel while doing it. Now, if you know skating, you might notice something weird here. There's no such thing as a quintuple half-axel, it's a quadruple, and quadruple is already the hardest move in figure skating, yet Emiya just casually does a quintuple. So yeah, not only can he clean, cook, fight, and carry the weight of responsibility, now it turns out he can figure skate too. This man really does everything with grace. Alright, after talking about the mommy type guy, now it's time for the mommy type woman. Qin Liangyu. The war general is a pretty straightforward person. She's strict, decisive, and doesn't mess around in battle. But guess what? She actually loves playing games. Well, not digital and PC games like Tomoe and the others though. Liangyu is into tabletop games. She regularly plays with Lakshmi Bai, as seen in Parvati's and Lakshmi's interludes. The two of them apparently have a whole routine of playing tabletop games together. The only problem is that Lakshmi is terrible at anything involving dice rolls, because you know, her luck is just that bad. Luckily, Qin Liangyu is the one actually shaking the dice, so I guess it's fine. Next up is Ivan the Terrible. His design was made to be as intimidating as possible, almost like he was meant to make you uncomfortable just by looking at him. I mean, we don't even know where his facial features are. On top of that, he's this massive ice blue figure with giant tusks. And it's not just his design. His personality is just as terrifying. He has a hair-trigger temper, and we all know what happens when he goes on a rampage. The last time we fought him, it took a giant golem and multiple heroic spirits just to bring him down. But aside from his short temper and destructive power, Ivan is actually a huge book nerd. The summonable version of Ivan regrets that his grand library, filled with treatises, grimoires, and magical tomes from all over the world, has been lost to time. So when he learns that Murasaki Shikibu has created a library at Chaldea, he's beyond excited. After getting a tour of the place, he decides it's his duty as a book lover to help expand it and make it as grand as his old collection. Before long, he ends up bonding with Murasaki and even Iskandar over their shared love of books. You guys, don't you dare even think anything weird about their friendship. I can already imagine what kind of degenerate thoughts you're having. Now let's talk about Jing Ke. Based on her personality and hobbies, you know, being a total drunkard, you'd never expect her to be into singing. But not only does she love it, she's actually really good at it. During the records of Enma's prosperity event, we find out that she has Liz's entire Love's Drill performance memorized to perfection. The voice, the decibel levels, even the choreography. She's got it all locked in. And the craziest part, she can still pull it off flawlessly even when she's completely wasted. Which basically implies that she listens to or watches Elizabeth's concerts a lot, probably even dancing along in her room when no one's watching. That's actually really cute, what the hell? So yeah, I think that's it for today. If I missed something or got it wrong, feel free to correct me or add more in the comments. For now, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.